Okay, so today we're going to be making the Lilac Hydrangea Wreath. This is what you get in the kit, which you either already have and you're watching this video, or you can buy from my Petals Craft shop on Etsy. Everything's ready for you to make. It's all been cut and bagged, and it's a simple step-by-step process to make the final wreath. The only thing you will need to get to do this is a glue gun. And some glue. So we'll move these out the way and then we'll get going. So the first thing, you've got your 30cm rattan wreath and a little sort of stick which you need to help you push everything in as you're making it. First bag one is the eucalyptus. It's been cut for you. All you have to do is empty it out and we get going. So glue gun's on, hot, ready to go. And the first thing we're going to do is we're going to attach the eucalyptus in a ring around the wreath to create the first layer, the first bit of foliage. Doesn't matter which one you start with, just pick one up. We've got a nice sort of, the rattan wreath lends itself to poking these stems in because you've got nice little gaps. Tiny bit of glue pushed in, and make sure you push the stem of the eucalyptus through the glue, and then you push it down into the body of the wreath, and that will hold. The glue will dry, that will stay solid. Then just start working your way around. If it's it'll be the first time you've done this kind of thing. To start with, you might want to just lay them all on so you can get a feel for how they spread around. Personally, I suppose because I've done quite a few of them, I just work my way around. It depends which one I pick up. That's quite a big one, so we leave a little bit more of a gap. And we lay that in. If you've got a big lump of glue, just wipe it off. Don't burn your fingers. It cools quite quickly and then you can just pull the glue off. Maybe then get a slightly smaller piece for the next place. If you get it in the wrong place, you can always pull it out and put it somewhere else. So you can see we're starting to make a nice circle. I bend the stems slightly as I'm putting them in to make it curve round. I'll just keep putting them in. So you can see I'm just changing my mind. I want a slightly smaller one in there. If you don't think there's enough glue that's gone on to hold it, just put a little bit more on the top. So then we've got 3 or 4 stems left. I'm going to put one of the larger ones in now. If you can poke it in underneath some of the rattan binding, that holds it more tightly. Put a slightly smaller one in there. So you can see it's nicely filling the gap. You've got quite a small one there, so we're going to put quite a large one in there. Just dunk the end in the glue, push it in. And then the last one goes in here. So you've got your 9 eucalyptus stems on. So there, you've got a nice base. Just sort of arrange it how you want it. The whole idea is this looks natural, so it's going to sort of stick out a little bit in odd places. So that's our first bit done. So now we're going to move on to the lamb's ear, which is bag 2. And this has all been cut for you, so empty that out. You've got numerous stems with leaves on, you've got individual leaves, you've got small sprigs, so it's a whole mixture of things. There is no right or wrong way of adding these in. This is literally down to just, again, working your way around the wreath and popping them in. The only thing I'd say is the little single leaves lend themselves to being sort of popped in on the sides. These bigger 3s, they're better off going flat on the top. Otherwise they look a bit odd when they're sort of stuck on the side. But you'll see as you work your way around. So don't worry about these lumps of glue that are here on the eucalyptus, because they're slowly going to get covered with the flowers and the lamb's ear. So just dive in and start. We're going to start there, pick up the first leaf that comes to hand, just squeeze it in, and you'll see it will just sort of flop over the side. It's meant to look natural. So I'm going to put another one, another sort of slightly curved one there. And then just twist the wreath round a bit. Work with the gaps that you've got on the wreath, so you can see you've got the natural way where the wreath's made. You've got larger gaps, smaller gaps. The design of the wreath is going to sort of determine where you put your leaves as well, and each wreath is different because they're all handmade, so you might find yours go in a very different place to where I'm putting them. Push that one in with your little stick, and you can see the way it's just naturally bunching up. So we're just going to work our way around until all of the leaves have been used up. You've got quite a lot, so you can put them in quite closely together. And again, if you don't like them when they've gone in where they are, take it out, scrape the glue out and put it somewhere else. Maybe you need to push them harder sometimes to get them into the little gap. Don't use your fingers because you'll burn yourself. Use this tool. So you can see I'm moving the leaves away so that I can get the lamb's ear in. And then the eucalyptus will fall back over it so it looks natural. I would avoid trying to put everything on top of the eucalyptus because it just won't look very natural. And all of these stems are quite securely in, so you can move them and pull them and bend them out the way and then put them back where you want them to go. And if they do come out, that's good, because it means you didn't stick them in properly. Now you know, so you need to redo them. If you can, try and get the stems in between the so that they're slightly hidden and they're not sitting on the top. Doesn't always work, but give it a go. So we're getting round and we've got quite a few leaves left over even though we've gone round in a circle. So we just keep working round until all the leaves have gone. So I've used up most of the singles, so now I need to pop some of these large ones. If you don't like these larger threes, you could always cut them up into single leaves, but I think it just looks a bit more natural when they bunch together. So we'll pick out any bits of glue. You'll find you get strings of it as you move the glue gun around. Just pull them off as you go. And then we'll just pop some more of these in. The little sprigs look nice when they're on the inside edge because you can see them a bit more. We've got a few of these larger ones that need to go in, so just try and find a nice big gap like that to pop them in. I would make sure you use all the leaves because it adds to the fullness at the end. There's a bit of a space there. Doesn't matter if they go in slightly sideways, just give that effect. Smaller, I'll pop them in here on the side. I'm going to put this one in here. So just just have a look and see where you think you've got a gap that you need to fill. I feel like there should be something there. This is a very fluid process. There's no, as I say, no right or wrong way of doing it. The way the wreath is made and the way you put the first set of leaves in is going to determine where everything else goes. So there we are, they're all in, and that looks nice and full. Quite happy with that. Pull off all the little strands of glue. So that's our foliage, and now we're going to put the flowers in and add the colour. So the first set of flowers that we put in are these really lovely lilac hydrangeas. They've got a very sort of vintage faded look about them. Again, they've been cut ready for you to use. There's 10 sprigs, so we put them in 5 lots of 2 around the wreath. So before you do any gluing, you really need to just lay them in and get the spacing right, because you want them equally placed, and you need to sort of find a nice, because the stems are quite thick, you need to find a decent hole to start with, which is going to determine where they go. So we'll start with that there. Just roughly lay them in. Don't glue them. We're just going to try them. And just by eye, don't be too accurate about it. Just try and work out a good place for them. You can move them. So that's... Again, the shape of the wreath is going to determine where they go. There's no point trying to squeeze them into a little hole. They won't work. They'll just keep falling out. 2 more. So unfortunately, although that's the right place, the hole there isn't big enough for the stems. So if I put them slightly to the right, they might end up too close together. I'm going to have to move one in a minute. That one looks like it needs to go there. So that's too close now. So we're going to move this one round. Just keep fiddling until they're quite nicely spaced. Again, it's there. So I think that's about right. I think that will work. To me, that looks quite nicely balanced. So start with one. Keep an eye on where you had it. Take your eye off that, otherwise you'll end up with everything badly spaced again. Quite a large lump of glue into that hole, because you've got to hold these in by quite a short amount of stem. And then just pop them in. Mind your fingers, it does hurt when you burn them with this glue. Push them in, and if you can, maybe just push them in a bit more with this tool. But you can tell when they're in, you can feel that they're nice and tight. Just leave it now and let the glue dry, and then just work your way around. Just try and keep them in the same place that you had them poked in. So again, it gets a bit fiddly now because you've got a lot more stuff in these spaces. If they don't want to go in, you might have to rethink and move them. That one's gone in, so that's okay. And again, don't be too precious about they've got to be on the top. It doesn't matter if a bit of it's hanging down the side. It's meant to look natural. You've still got more stems to go in, so it will work. Right, that's a nice big space there. A couple of dobs of glue. Poke that in. Like that. Maybe put the eucalyptus back through it or around it. You can arrange it at the end. A little more to do. You have to work quite quickly because this glue does dry really fast, and you don't want to end up with lots of lumps of dried glue that you've got to pick out. There we go. You can move the leaves. Last one. There. So that is nearly done. We've got the nice lilac hydrangeas in, and we've just got the final bit, which is this bag number 4, which is 15 sprigs of a slightly different, smaller petal hydrangea, again with a lovely faded vintage effect. They look like they're dried, almost sound like they are as well. 15 sprigs, which obviously means 3 around each of these larger lilac bunches. And this one now is really down to your own artistic flair, I think is the word. You're going to have to just put them in as you feel they work, and it will be different for every single one of you. So jump in, doesn't matter which one you start with. Maybe pick a little bit of these glue out now so that you don't have it at the end to do. And we'll start, have a look, see where the holes are, see how it's all sitting. We're going to sort of put them in different places, and it, again, you'll see as we work our way around. So I'm going to start there. There's a nice little hole there. It lends itself to sitting there. A little bit of glue. These ones go in a bit deeper, so you don't need quite such a large lump of glue for these. And then try and get your tool in the middle of the bunch and push it down hard so it sits. And then I tend to just blend the leaves in together so it looks natural. Move things around, that leaf can go under there. Don't be afraid of bending and moving everything. So that's one in. Then just pick up another one. Don't be too specific about what colour you're picking up. I'm going to go on this side now so that it all feels balanced. So again, little hole, push it in, blend it in. It's all starting to look lovely and full. So you've got one more to go in. If you wanted to, you could move this eucalyptus and put it through the middle of the flowers. You can play around and do whatever you want. Just blend everything in together. I'm going to leave it around the back because I quite like it there. One more to go in this section. To me, I think it's going to be going in here, just so that it all feels like a nice round clump. Effectively, we're using 5 different sprigs of hydrangeas to create the effect of one head. So you can see that's the final effect of it. Then we move on to the next set. These are falling in a slightly different place. All of these are leaning towards the side, so we'll probably end up putting most of these smaller petals on this side to make sure it looks full. So pop that into a convenient space. A little blend around. Just be aware of the colours in here. You've got some slightly darker ones, so you may not want all the darker ones in together. Just pick according to how you want it to look. I think I'd probably put another one on this side. Maybe one of the larger ones on this side. There. And then I will probably pop one of these smaller, darker sprigs in on the back. Now it's getting tight for space, but if you can go slightly to the side, because they'll fall around and you can push them in together. There you go. So you can see now we're getting a really lovely, full, natural effect with lots of different colours in these central bunches of flowers. Some are falling down inside, some will fall down outside, and that's great because it looks natural. So now I'm going to work this way. You might want to, the first time you do this, you might want to just pop these all in without gluing them so that you get a practice feel for how they're going to look at the end. And then you can move them around until you're happy with them. I've sort of got used to it because I think this is the nearly 200 of these I've made now, so I sort of do it without thinking. but that's nice. And then maybe one of the larger, probably on that side there, because that's looking like it's a bit thinner. And we'll pop that in there. Push that down, get that in as hard as you can. If it's not going in, take it out, put it in another little gap. There, so that's all nicely blended and you've got the leaves in the middle. 2 more to do. This one's sort of leaning forward, so we're going to put most of the flowers around the back. Don't worry if a little petal falls off, you'll need that. So we want to bring 2 more back on this side because you can see everything's leaning towards the middle. And if we keep on putting it here, it's just going to look wrong at the end. It's going to look unbalanced. Sometimes if the rattan is quite tight, I would push it apart with the spike just so that I can get a hole where I want it to be. It's quite easy to work with. You can create a larger gap. There we go. One there, and then I think we'll do 1 more of the larger ones on this side. Again, I need to just make the hole a little bit bigger. Push the stick in and wiggle it a bit to make that hole a bit bigger. Actually, I'm going to go for that darker one. Bit of a game by this bait, trying to get them in. There we go. So that's pulled it back and balanced it because you've now got flowers on this side as opposed to them all hanging there. Then the last one, everything should fit in nicely here. I think we're going to go side side and maybe one at the front there because you've got quite a bit on this outside edge. It is really all down to your own judgment and how it's looking as you're doing it. I'm just going to pop that one in there, blend them all in together. Maybe that needs to just be pushed down a bit more because it's sitting a bit high. See, that looks better now, it's gone down a bit lower and it's balancing with everything else. And then I think we're going to put that larger head in there into that gap. Down. And then I think we need to just put one in there, which is going to be a bit tricky because there's not a lot of space in there. I think I can just pop it in underneath that eucalyptus. So what I might do is just hold the eucalyptus open, hold the rattan wreath apart and just push that in with the other hand. Makes it a bit easier. There. So they're all in. And I'm quite happy with that. I think that looks balanced. You can fiddle to your heart's content, bending leaves and moving things around. Leave it for a little while to dry. Just keep pulling all the sprigs of glue off. If you leave it for a few hours, the glue will go white and you will start to have a look through. So just before you completely finish it, just pull the flowers, have a look. Pull out any lumps of glue. If you've got something really unsightly, a huge lump, you'll find a few spare petals in the kit. Just take one of the petals. I'm just trying to find an example of something that doesn't look too good, because a lot of it will be hidden by the flowers. But okay, so for example, we've got quite a large lump of unsightly glue here. Personally, I'd get a pair of scissors and I'd start picking bits off, because some of these are just lumps that have dried on top of the stems. So you can just pick them out. They're not going to make any difference. Nothing's going to fall out. But if you don't want to do that, it's a bit fiddly, but it's worth doing just so you know you haven't got anything horrible sitting there. But for this one, maybe if you took that out, the eucalyptus is going to fall out. So all I would do is put a teeny little bit of glue on top there, get one of your petals that's loose, and just stick it on, and it hides it. It looks nice and it finishes it. And you can work your way around the whole wreath doing that, picking out any little unsightly bits and covering up the bits you can't pick off with some of the loose petals. And that's it, your Lilac Hydrangea Wreath.